I have now begun recording.
Okay, so first question.
Oh, well, first, let me just say, because if you're going to show this to a class, Doran, I'm honored to get a chance to be interviewed and to get to share time with your class in this way. And I really think that the work that you're doing is severely important. So it's honored to be your guest here today. So thank you.
Also, thank you for doing this for me. It means a lot to get someone to interview. So thank you.
I think you're in good hands with your teacher. It sounds like a project too, where like they're really helping you reach out to, to learn in whichever ways are possible to help out your community. So I think you're doing a great job and excellent. Bravos all around. So very cool. All right, I'm ready.
Okay. So first question, why do you think it's important to plant milkweed for the monarch butterflies?
Or for that question, like I could answer it, I guess, two different ways. Because it could be like, why is it important for me personally? Or why is it important for maybe the general public? And I don't know if I can really answer it for the general public beyond just saying what it means maybe to me. But I know that when I stumbled upon the plight of the monarchs, as I like to call it, finding out that their numbers had plummeted since the early 90s, I saw it as something where, I remember teachers early on showing us how to raise monarchs, and I never did it. Back in the day, I just was not as interested. I went through a bug phase kind of that I never went out of, but I just wasn't that into butterflies. But I remember that it was something easy to do. When I heard that the monarch numbers were down, I thought, well, I'm going to try to raise just, a couple monarchs. And I'm also a science Olympiad coach, and entomology, the study of insects, was coming up. So I knew I had to start like learning about that anyway. I thought, well, let's try to raise some butterflies. That's when I learned about how bad they were doing. And so I thought, well, if really, when I found out that the reason why their numbers were declining was really just because of lack of milkweed, something that is a weed, something that people are getting rid of all the time, something that you could plant. I saw it as like, this is an animal that we could help, where you could get very personal with it. It's not like I love the polar bears and I love, all sorts of endangered species. I love the panda, but what can I really do, Rich Lund in his backyard, what can I do to help out the panda bears besides write a check? I mean, that's about all I can really do. Or like, give somebody $1 for some plastic bracelet, and more power to awareness, but I would want something more personal and I can't. But with the monarch butterflies, it seemed like this is something that I or anybody else could help. And all it takes to save this animal and save this migration in our continent is to not be apathetic and to just plant some milkweed. That's all it takes. And can you do that even for free, pretty much? So why not? Why not? That's
Yeah,
how
you
I
can
felt
go.
about it, what it was important to me. Is it important economically to anyone? I don't know. Is it important to, the ecosystem? Could our ecosystem survive without them? Probably, maybe. I don't know. I just know that it's something I want to do something about.
Well, thank you. Next question.
I hope that wasn't too much. I can be wordy.
Why do you think other people should care about the monarch butterfly?
So I mean, that is kind of a good follow-up to what we were just talking about. I guess I can't make somebody care, I can't really put a passion into somebody. But I think that if you try to raise an actual monarch butterfly, it could just be one egg. But I give yourself a few more, because I think, like, accidents can happen. It's a species that the monarch butterfly plays the numbers. She will lay around 300 eggs, and not all 300 are going to make it. If 10 make it, that's pretty good in nature. So, if you're going to raise some monarchs and doing that, I think that gives somebody a personal experience with the animal, to when then I can talk to you about, after you've actually cared for one from egg to adult, just one, and you took it all the way, then I can talk to you, whoever you may be, the general person, about why they should care about this animal. Because you can see how awesome that is. And if you get to the end of raising one and you let go of that butterfly, you release it back into nature, and you don't see any reason after that, then yeah, it's not for you, and you shouldn't. I mean, you're not going to care. I don't know that I can make somebody care. But I think if they have that experience, they'll see that This is an animal where to that individual that you raised, it means everything to them, because it's their life. They had maybe a 3% chance of making it on their own. You upped that, you did better for it. And for that individual, it means a lot. That individual, they care a lot, and maybe you have a personal relationship with that one. Could you do that for 10? Could you do that for 20? Do things start to become questionable as far as how it's impacting the ecosystem if people are trying to do 3 or 4 or 500 a summer? Yeah, that can be something questionable. But when it comes to, is it something that can be important to the individual? Yes. I hope that answered your question.
That really did answer my question. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Okay, now I could ask you some personal questions that relate to your experience with them.
Sure. Affirmative.
So, why do you think you haven't had any tachnid flies?
Why have I not had any tachnid flies?
Mhm.
For when it comes to like the Raising Monarch series, I was trying to make like 5 parts to how to do it. I did not know that as many people would be watching it as they do. And a lot of like the questions that would come in to the comment sections, I would realize eventually, well, I'm answering kind of the same question, so maybe I should just make an episode that covers the answer to that, and then that kind of covers it, and I wouldn't have to keep on typing the same thing. And that kind of then steered what kind of episodes were made, and the tachnid fly question continued to come up. Like, I would like you to make a video on tachnid flies. And I'm like, I don't know anything about tachnid flies, because I kind of learn as I go, and I've learned when problems have come up, things about them. And that's also taught me, like, in many cases, I needed to be more responsible as far as looking ahead to see what is out there. Were there things that I didn't even know I was doing that was irresponsible or could be done more responsibly? And I've tried to put out, things about that. But when it came to the tachnid flies, I've never had them. And the reason being has been, I put the monarchs, I get them from the egg and I rear them until they're an adult. And so in that case, when it comes to tachnid flies, that animal, and with tachnid flies, I believe there's 80,000. I think that's an entire, don't quote me on this, order or family of flies. And so, like, of the true flies, the tachnid flies, there's 80,000 different species, I think. Somewhere in that. The number's 80,000 that's sticking in my head, but they're all over every continent except for, I think, Antarctica. And the ones that we deal with like caterpillars, there's so many different ones that what they do is they inject eggs into the caterpillar.
I know.
So if I've got the monarch butterfly as an egg and I put it into an environment that the tachnid fly adult can't even get into, whether that be in an actual like sealed container, whether that be in an outdoor rearing tent, but something the tachnid fly can't get into, then there's no chance for the tachnid fly to ever like infiltrate and get into and thus cause a problem for me. And I think that's why every single one that I've reared has been usually that. Or I do admit I've taken in sometimes like later instar caterpillars or earlier instar caterpillars that I find when looking for eggs. And it could have been that I could have had a tachnid problem, but I just never have. So.
Oh, that happened with us once when we gave a caterpillar to one of our friends, and it died.
Yeah. I'm guessing the caterpillar might have been. I'm not sure how you rear. Had you found this caterpillar from like an egg, or had you found it as a caterpillar in nature?
Idlewild had almost run out of milkweed, so the only plants were about like that tall. So yeah. That could have really provided. So we left it out in our backyard in our milkweed garden because that had a lot more plants. And then I think we gave it to them when it was a 4th or 5th instar.
That's very awesome. So you've got a milkweed garden. That's cool. Very cool.
Okay, so thanks for answering that.
Any other questions? Any other follow-ups? Anything that's on your mind now?
No, not right now. There was 5 more questions I've written down, but none that I've taken of now.
Okay, fair enough.
Mm-hmm. So just something I want to say is I got into thinking about doing this Monarch Waystation because we're doing this thing in 4th grade called passion projects.
Passion projects.
Yeah, where we do something about what we like our passion. And I thought I really like butterflies, so the perfect thing would be to create a Monarch Waystation. So I once sent out an email to the head of school asking to see if if we use pesticides. And then things started to go pretty big after that of communication.
So when you were letting the head of school know that you wanted to know about pesticides, that's when they knew you were serious.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, he's asking the right questions, you know.
Because I don't want to just go ahead and build a garden on their own on the school campus without any permission from the head of school.
Fair enough. True.
And there could be pesticides everywhere. But fortunately, they don't use pesticides, although they occasionally spread for weeds along the sidewalks. And the sidewalks are pretty close to the school building, but there's a bunch of fenced-in land out there that would be perfect. So I just thought doing a Monarch Waystation would represent my passion.
Do you know, in order to implement such a project, what the resources is, like a list of resources? Here's what I would need. Like, for example, would you need help? Would you need a number of volunteers with you to clear out the area to plant the milk? Would you need, is it just about volunteer time? Is it about, I also want to put in these other certain flowers and maybe get it to be an official waystation? Because I know monarchwatch.org can make it an official waystation, but also it could be something that's a school project that you just want to make, hey, a pollinator haven anyway that is a heavy focus on milkweed. And maybe depending upon what your school prefers, they might prefer it one way or the other. In some cases, they might prefer to say, hey, yeah, let's make it something official. We want to, have a cool photo op and just be registered as showing we want to throw our hat in with monarchwatch.org. Or it could be something where it's like, well, we don't know if we want to attach ourselves to an organization, but we do want to help out the monarch butterfly any way that we can. So sure, let's plant a pollinator garden. And so maybe that would be something to also discuss with the school as far as if you're doing that for them. As far as what you do in your own backyard, hey, that's up to you.
We haven't got quite that far, but we've got some ideas of volunteers. So we've gotten about that far.
And who started that?
About the volunteers part?
Yep.
Well,
I'm pointing at your screen. From my perspective, I'm pointing at your screen.
Okay.
I'm saying that you started that in your community. I'm guessing you got those volunteers together.
We haven't gotten much together, but we're thinking of some high schoolers and maybe middle schoolers and maybe a certain teacher in high school that is a science teacher. So we've only gotten quite that far.
Is it the science teacher who's going to be watching this video? And should I lay the pressure on right now?
That science teacher, I don't think is going to be watching the video. The only people I think who will be watching this video is the 2 4th grade teachers and our class.
Hey, the class, I bet you they collectively have some good ideas as to which teacher they got in mind.
Okay, next question.
Ready.
How many have tested positive for the OE parasite?
In general, in the history of the Earth, in my own household projects?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
Like, that you have raised.
For me, I don't know the number offhand. It's been less than 10. I know that with OE, which I have refused to try to pronounce anymore. I'm sorry, I just call it OE. I could work harder on that one, but I just don't do it anymore. But
Yeah, I
oh
wouldn't do it
yeah,
either.
because I tried so hard, and like I can, I can pronounce words for foreign languages. I could not get this OE thing. So for me, people kept asking about it, and so I was curious too. And I was like, I didn't know how much OE was around Michigan, and so I'm kind of like in the middle of the Lower Peninsula, and so I'm testing monarchs a whole summer long, and I had two the whole summer long. And that was a summer where also I did around close to 200 monarchs, and I think most of that was because as I was finding milkweed, it was a summer where there was a lot of eggs out there, and I was just trying to feed the ones I had. And I realized I'm being sanitary. This isn't taxing, and so I did that. I don't know if the average person would take on 200, if that's always a great idea, but like I did it that time. So out of about 200, if memory serves me correctly, there was two that had it. And then there's like another summer where there was one, and another summer where there was two more, and then there's been like a couple summers where there hasn't been any. I don't really know the number offhand, and I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure it's less than
10. Okay. Okay.
3 of which are
Thanks for.
still in my freezer, in case I ever, like, if people have asked to do a video about like wing transplant or wing repair, and I've never done that, and I don't at all feel comfortable making a video about here's how to do something I've never done. But people have asked about it, and I know it's possible to do, but you need wings somewhere. So I've got the ones that had OE. What I would be doing is trying to source their wings and make sure that those wings are OE free. Because the ones that I tested, these ones that wound up in the freezer, they had very low amounts of OE. And so with those wings, I could use that to hopefully, if I have, well, I'm not hoping for a deformed monarch, but if I encounter that where the wings are deformed, could I potentially do a wing transplant? That's maybe something I'm looking to try at some point.
The only one we've had, we haven't tested any yet. But we had a chrysalis that showed definite signs of OE parasite, so we had to put that in the freezer.
Yeah, and there's a possibility too where like I may have had others that had OE, but if it was heavy enough to where it never emerged from an adult, I have not tested the chrysalids. So there have been times where like I've had a couple chrysalids that have not made it to the adult stage. So that definitely has happened before too. Yeah. So again, that could be the unknown. So maybe it's been more than just my less than 10 number. It's just they were heavy enough to where they didn't make it out to the adult stage.
Just another. I just want to say thank you also for making those videos because it helped. It really helped us a lot with the butterflies. It really did. So I just want to thank you for that.
I appreciate it. When I get thanked for it, I feel like it's whatever thanks I'm getting, it's 3 times triple fold back to the people who are using the information. Because like it's worth nothing if people aren't actually using it. It's just me in front of a camera waving my hands and talking too much. So if people are actually picking up the information and doing something with it, that's truly effective. I'll take the credit of sure, I put some information out there. I try to always make it correct and backed by science and double check things. Mistakes happen here and there, but it's in your hands. And so the people who pick it up and do something with it, and the people who pick it up like you who not only do something with it, but are now also taking it to the next level and promoting it and getting awareness and showing others how to do it too with your videos, that's really fulfilling what I would hope a lot of people would do. Because I don't want to be the guy who like everybody turns to for it. I want to try to build that with community, and I would consider you doing that exact same thing. You're reaching out to a sphere of influence of people I can't reach as easily. That's why I'm a fan of yours.
That's kind of what I wanted to do with my butterfly patch, butterfly garden.
Butterfly patch, Waystation, Haven, official, unofficial.
I wanted to try to get other people involved in that.
Exactly. Something like that. They're going to ask you questions about it. They're going to want to know.
So that people can get involved and maybe start doing it like in their own house and start doing that. So it's kind of great it helps to let people know what you're doing and basically let them have a try.
In the case of you know, with milkweed, specifically like that plant, I know that if I've had that planted in, you know, backyard areas, that's one place where I can source different weeds or like for food and things of that sort. But if I plant it in my front yard, that's where it's showing it off to like other neighbors. Hey, this isn't a weed. This isn't something that I'm like trying to pull out and it's not growing here accidentally. You got it with some other well-kept flowers. Really, that communicates the message of this plant, even though it's called milkweed. Well, scientifically, there is no such thing as a weed. A weed is really just any plant that's growing where you don't want it there. So in a corn patch, a flower bush or a rose bush is a weed, you know. But in a rose bush garden, the corn is the weed. It's all perspective. So if putting like milkweed out prominently where people can see it and see that it's got beautiful flowers, see that they smell nice. I think they smell nice at least. Then I think that helps really promote and communicate the message.
Thanks for that. Thanks.
You are welcome. You are welcome.
Okay, next question. I'm not sure if you'll be able to quite answer these two questions, but how many, like, could you kind of estimate how many milkweed plants you have in your garden?
To know how many can be tough to answer because if you like with the actual plant itself, the root system, it's shallow. I guess shallow. I mean, I've heard it described as shallow. I don't know enough about all sorts of root systems to know. I'm sure there's trees that have much deeper ones, and there's other plants that are much more shallow. But it's a spreader that has a tap root where like shoots of other plants will come out. So one way that the at least common milkweed, the species I deal with, one way that milkweed plant propagates is of course through seeds, and that's how it will reproduce. But another way is that really the root system will spread underneath and then new shoots come up from there. And so you might see a plant over here and then above ground these 4 other stalks that sprouted up. Now, do we count that as this is 5 plants, or is this really all just the same plant since it's all from the same root system? And then if that root system breaks for some reason, some, you know, mole comes through and gnaws through it, or I don't know if moles really do that, but then now these 4 plants, they have the same genetics as the other plant. So it's the same plant, but they are separated, and now they will grow and have separate histories, you know. So it's tough to really estimate. But when it comes like, you know, number of stalks and stuff, I've got this patch of yard where it was when we purchased the house that we did, there was all sorts of areas that were just like, it was a lot of garden area. And I actually like reclaimed it as not being all these nice flowers that our previous owner had. And instead there was like this area that was still kind of wild. We had not kept it up that well. And so all I did was just like a quick search and destroy, pulled everything out, no matter what it was. Cause my wife had said like, yep, you can do what you want with this little patch. So I pulled everything out, and then I threw what milkweed seeds I could there to see if what would grow. And I planted a few, like try to take the care for it. I planted 6. With the 6, I thought they were goners because those 6 were just like little sprouts. They were maybe 2 inches tall, and they were there for like 2 weeks. And this was in August. And at that time, we didn't have a fence in the yard, and deer came through, and they would eat anything that was growing in our yard. So deer came through, and they ate our milkweed plants. We wake up one day, milkweed's gone, and I'm like, well, it was late August. I guess it's just not coming back. And then the next year, we had like plants coming up right there, and so the root system had survived. So originally, it was really like whatever seeds I threw in 6. And that's like my little nature area where I've got my milkweed plants, and they've spread to other areas then where I'm like, yep, I'll let them just stay there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So the second question that kind of relates to the one I just asked you, do you know what types they are? Not like we're gonna plant them, because I know there's different types of milkweeds you want at different locations. But just what type do you think is your milkweed?
My milkweed is definitely the species Asclepias syriaca, and so that's known as common milkweed. So any milkweed I've worked with, for me, I would prefer, I suppose, to I'm using the milkweed that I know is native to my area. That way, if like it's dispersing seeds, well, it's dispersing seeds that would already be dispersed in my region. And so I've got a few options in Michigan where I'm at, but common milkweed's got really big leaf sizes, and I already had some, and so I've just always stuck with that. Asclepias
Okay.
syriaca. And I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly because I've never been corrected, but I don't really know.
It sounds, I don't know how to pronounce it. I haven't seen that word even, but it sounds like you pronounced it right or pretty close to right.
I hope so, because I think enough people are maybe watching some of the videos to where like I might be influencing if they are pronouncing it that way, and I don't want to do that wrong either. So.
Okay. Next question is, have you ever interviewed in? Okay, I don't quite know how to pronounce this word, but I'll try. Have you ever interviewed an entomologist?
Have I ever interviewed an entomologist?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess it would depend on how we're classifying an entomologist and what an interview is.
Or just the scientist of.
Oh, yeah, certainly. I mean, like, whether it be formal or informal. I mean, I don't make YouTube videos necessarily where like I go out to try to get an interview with somebody. And I know that some do that kind of stuff. I am always trying to double check if I'm ever making a video to try to communicate anything scientific to the general public. I would want to make sure I'm backing that up with actual, the science. I'm not trying to make up something. I want to make sure, like, so what is it that we're talking about? And I usually refer then to multiple different scientists, the actual experts, because I'm not an expert. I'm just somebody who's maybe at this point found himself in a position to be able to try to communicate what the experts are saying in a more maybe general public way. So I'll talk to them often through email. I'll ask them questions and I'll, find out what they have to say on things. But also I want to respect that, when it comes to science, a scientist might just be trying to do their work and stay out of issues that might arise that are controversial. So in some cases, it's like, hey, I'm not looking to get a video interview with you, but just, can I quote you on this one topic, or do you have a statement about this or that? So I've kind of looked for quotes from them. Some have been more open to just like answering a bunch of questions. Some would say, I'm willing to say this, and that's all they kind of wanted to say. And so really though, if you reach out to scientists and just send them an email, that gets you pretty far. I mean, like Google search the usually it's a doctor's name, put PhD after the name, get the first and last name, you can find it, and you can usually find their university email and send them a quick note and just speak from the heart, let them know what you're up to, and they'll talk to you. They'll want to reach out to you because they'll see what passion and what you're about. Or if they have a problem with what you're doing, they'll let you know why. And then you can learn, like, oh, I did not know that that's a reason to not do what I thought. And it's still a learning situation, and they can steer you into a direction where, hey, maybe put your passion into this direction. And that's cool too.
Thanks. That answered my question.
You are welcome. Welcome for sure.
Next one. Basically, how did you learn how to take care of him? How did you learn to do all those stuff?
I think the same way you did, where when I was trying to figure this out, I was doing it I was really trying to learn about it more like 2011, 12. I forget exactly which year to pin it down. I think it was 2012. I was trying to like figure out how to do it well and better. And the YouTube categories of monarch butterflies were not all that well fleshed out. And so that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to do it the way you were. Let's look up stuff on the internet and see what was out there. And, there's books on it and some guides that had a few diagrams, and you could find those on the internet, like a paragraph or two on a blog and a diagram from an old science textbook just wasn't quite doing it for me as well as, other things could be. So I'm checking out YouTube, and there's a few videos here and there, and there's some good information out there, but it was all kind of separated and you had to hunt for it. And there was nothing like all put together into one thing. And some of the videos out there were kind of blurry, and I'm not saying my videos have perfection to them at all or anything close, but I just thought, like, is there a way that I could like show, here's what I did? Because I did it for like a few years before I felt like, okay, now I feel like I know how to do this. I haven't had any major problems. I'm going to show others how I did it. And that's all I was trying to do. Not say, here's the way to do it, but instead say, here's what I'm doing, and here's what success I have with it. Take it from there, recreate what I do or put your own spin or modifications on it. Just, try to be responsible for the animal in all steps that you do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, this is the last question. I don't have any questions that I'm thinking of to ask you right now. So how did you start raising monarchs, basically? Like,
So,
how did you get the idea that you wanted to raise them?
I don't know that I was set on it until, again, it was partially Science Olympiad was in my mind. What exact year entomology was coming down the road, I wasn't sure, but forestry was what we currently had, and that was all about trees. And I had tried to really learn a lot about trees, and I'd kind of tapped out to where I'd learned as much as I could, and I'd always been excited about insects. So when entomology was coming down the road, I was excited to learn about it. And I'd go for morning jogs in the spring and summer, and on one of my morning jogs, I just happened to notice milkweed with two caterpillars on it. I just happened to notice. And so I had been thinking about what can I do to learn about insects anyway. And I saw these two monarchs. I did not know anything about them not doing well. I just saw two monarchs on a milkweed plant. I was like, I'm going to raise some monarchs. So I took those two home on my jog, put them in a jar, and started looking up things about monarch butterflies, figured out how to raise them, and then also started figuring out things about how they weren't doing that well. And it all just kind of went from there.
Okay, that's the last question from Ripley. This time it's a thank you for answering these for me and just taking your time to do this with me.
So, hey, I think it's important. I think it's definitely important. And I think what work you're doing is important. Again, it's an honor to be able to be a part of your important work.
Thank you. Well, that's it.
Well, all right. Then I shall sign off. I shall say goodbye to whatever other people are watching this, and I shall stop my recording now.